Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44-2A, I rise to give the following statement on behalf of the House Business Committee, which met on Tuesday, 11th October 2022 in the afternoon following its formation to prioritize business for consideration. Honorable Speaker, members will recall that yesterday, Wednesday, 12th October 2022, in accordance to the provisions of Standing Order number 28, this House approved the calendar of the National Assembly for the regular sessions for the first session. Therefore, the House is now scheduled to proceed for its recess tomorrow, Friday, 14th October 2022, and resume the regular sittings on Tuesday, the 25th of October 2022. Honorable Speaker, for the information of members, during the recess, the Committee on Appointments is expected to undertake the vetting of persons nominated to the positions of Cabinet Secretaries, Attorney General, and the Secretary to the Cabinet, and table its report on this matter when we resume regular sittings. Further, the Committee on Selection will also be considering the placement of members in the various parliamentary committees. Honorable Speaker, this will therefore be a working recess for many of us, those of us who sit in the Appointments and the Selections Committee. I urge the House to be patient as these processes are ongoing and take the opportunity of this short break to connect, as we said yesterday, with our families and our constituents, and do what we called bonding yesterday with both our families and our constituents following the elections we had, and many of us have not had an opportunity to get back to our constituents, and for some, maybe even back to their families. Finally, Honorable Speaker, the House Business Committee will reconvene on the 25th of October 2022 to schedule the business for the week of resumption of the House. I now wish to lay this statement on the table of the House, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Order number 8, motion, appointment of a joint committee on election of members to IALA.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I beg to move the following motion, that acknowledging that the East African Legislative Assembly, IALA, is established under Article 9 of the Treaty for the Establishment of the East African Community as one of the key organs and institutions of the community responsible for the community's legislative matters. Recognizing Article 50 of the treaty provides for the election of members of IALA by respective partner states legislatures in accordance with their parliamentary procedures for a term of 5 years. Further, aware that the East African Legislative Assembly Elections Act of 2011 contemplates conclusion of the election of members of a new assembly to be within 90 days before the expiry of the term of the substituting assembly, and noting that the term of the current East African Legislative Assembly lapses on the 17th of December this year. Cognizant of the need to urgently conclude the election process for the East African Legislative Assembly to commence transacting business of the East African community, now therefore in accordance with the provisions of Rule 9 of the Houses of Parliament Joint Sittings Rules, the House resolves the following. 1, to establish a joint committee consisting of 7 members appointed by each of the Houses of Parliament to undertake the functions contemplated under the East African Legislative Assembly election of members of the Assembly Rules of 2017. 2, that the following members shall represent the National Assembly in the Joint Committee. 1, the Honorable Wanjiku Muhia, MP, who is designated as a co-chairperson. 2, the Honorable John Mutunga Kanyuithia, MP. 3, the Honorable Daniel Nanok Epuyo, MP. 4, the Honorable Francis Sigei Kipyegon, MP. 6, the Honorable Ruth Adhiambo Busia, MP. I think that's Adhiambo Busia, MP. 7, the Honorable Dr. Makali Mulu, MP. And finally, the Honorable Sabina Chege, MP. Honorable Speaker, with your indulgence, I just need to confirm one of the names again. Yeah, because in my notes, not Busia is the Honorable Francis Igei, who had been repeated, but it's okay on the order paper. 3, that the officers of the clerks of the Houses of Parliament shall provide secretarial services to the Joint Committee in accordance with the standing orders. And 4, that the Joint Committee shall report to the House within the timeline stipulated in the East African Legislative Assembly election of members of the Assembly Rules 2017. Honorable Speaker, as I've stated in a motion, the East African Legislative Assembly, or EALA, is the independent legislative arm of our East African community that was established under Article 9 of the EAC Treaty. And Honorable Speaker, as members are aware, and maybe for the benefit of our new members, we have 9 members who are elected by each partner state, and Kenya being a partner state in the community, we are to elect these 9 members. And the purpose of this joint committee is to guide us through the process of electing these members. And that's why you see we have representation from across the political divide, representing all our parliamentary political parties. And of course, we assume that the interests of the non-parliamentary political parties are catered for under our coalitions. But the list of names that we have submitted, Honorable Speaker, has representation from all our political parties that are parliamentary political parties. Honorable Speaker, the Assembly plays a very critical role in furtherance of the EAC objectives, such as 1, liaising with national assemblies of partner states on matters relating to the community, debating and approving the budget of the community. 3, considering of annual reports on the activities of the community, annual audit reports, and any other reports referred to. 4, discussing all matters referred to regarding the community and making recommendations as it may deem necessary for the implementation of the community treaty. Honorable Speaker, Rule 9 of the Houses of Parliament for joint sittings, as I said, establishes a joint committee by way of a motion, which is the motion that we've just tabled. And it consists of membership from both houses. This list that we are approving here is that of the National Assembly. And the other house will also have their list, and that's why we have designated the Honorable Wanjiku Muhia, who is not only a ranking member of the House, but is also an immediate former member of the EALA Legislative Assembly. So she's very well versed with the affairs of EALA and the provisions of the treaty and what needs to be done. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, as I mentioned earlier, the term of the 4th Assembly, that the Honorable Wanjiku Muhia, the Honorable Jamatia, who is also here, comes to an end on the 17th of December this year, and the 5th Assembly is expected to commence its sittings early in the year 2023. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, members will note that the Parliament of Kenya is required to conduct the election of its members to EALA latest by the 17th of December 2022. However, the elections were not carried out immediately as the 12th Parliament ended on the 10th of June. Members, you remember, we took our sine die recess or adjournment in June, and we could not carry out the elections for the members who would have replaced the outgoing members. And therefore, this 13th Parliament is required to urgently conclude this process for the East African Legislative Assembly to commence transacting its business and to avoid the scenario that we witnessed in the last elections of members of the Assembly in 2017. And I think we are well within time, but it's very important that before we take our recess now, from tomorrow, we have this committee so that they may also as the other two committees, the Committee on Appointments and the Committee on Selections, are working, they may also now reconstitute themselves and begin to prepare the timetable and the program that will guide us into the elections for us to come back and conduct the elections. They will also guide us on when they will advertise and the entire timetable of the election program for us to be able to come back and elect our new members to IALA. Therefore, with the passage of this motion and that in the Senate, Honorable Speaker, it may as well serve as notice to those who are out there, because nobody seated here will be electable to IALA. But I know there are very many, even of our colleagues who we were within the 12th Parliament who are interested in IALA, in sitting in IALA. Therefore, they may as well be notified through the passage of this motion that the process has begun, and they can therefore begin their campaigns to when they are allowed by the committee, as they will be guided by the committee. Honorable Speaker, with those very many remarks, I beg to move, and I will ask the Honorable Leader of the Minority, the Honorable Pio Wandai, to second this motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to second the motion for the